Okay, I think we're ready.
All right, let's do this. Sorry about the audio challenge there, but I think we're good.
No problem. All right, welcome everybody. We're really excited about this conversation today because it's going to be more of a conversation. We purposely didn't call it a webinar. It's not a training. It's not a masterclass. It's not any of that stuff. It's a roundtable discussion. We plan on having a discussion with you guys and hopefully sharing a few things that we've learned and observed over the years. Growing a small business is tough. It's tough no matter how you look at it. And there's a lot of confusion out there. Our hope today is to bring some clarity to the picture for you to help you turn that chaotic state of small business into what you designed it to be, which is a machine to create freedom for your life. And so with that, we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to take a moment here and introduce Brett Gilliland, CEO of Elite Entrepreneurs. I've known Brett for I think well over 10 years. Brett came on at Infusionsoft back in the day to lead organizational development. And you may not know exactly what that means. That's okay, because I think it'll become clear throughout our conversation today what Brett's strengths are and why Clayt would bring someone like him into the leadership team, and really kind of as Clayt's right-hand man to lead everything from the organizational development to the culture to the growth strategies and all that kind of stuff. So Brett's got amazing and powerful experience there at Infusionsoft during some really rapid growth times, as well as since he's taken the Elite program from Infusionsoft, spun it off as a separate business, Elite Entrepreneurs, and has been helping hundreds of seven-figure business owners. The key there to understand is what Brett does and what his team does is they help people go from roughly $1 million in annual revenue to 10 million and beyond. Those are some challenging growth experiences that you have along that trajectory, and that's really their expertise, is helping you grow through that transition. So I'm excited to be having this conversation with Brett today and having him share his wisdom with us.
Well, thanks, Tyler. I think now I get a chance. I'm glad you went first, because now I can try to up you on introducing. I think most of you know Tyler, but some of you are from my world and may not know Tyler very well. So let me introduce Tyler. Of course, a lot of people know that Tyler was the VP of marketing at Infusionsoft at a critical point in our growth in that company. And it was actually in that 7-figure growth phase that I met Tyler. He was working there at Infusionsoft. I started there when we were in 7 figures, and together we were on the ship there together for, I don't know, probably 5 years. You worked there for about 10 years. I worked there for about 10 years, but they were different years.
Yeah, I wasn't there 10 years. I was there about 5 years.
Okay, 5 years.
It
All right.
feels
Well, I was there for 5
like
years
10 years
after Tyler. So Tyler was there about 5 years. I was there for 10 years. Anyway, long story short, Tyler became known as the original Infusionsoft ninja. Many of you know him as that, but he really did wonders in automating our growth there when we were trying to figure out how do we in an automated fashion follow up in a targeted way with all of our prospects and customers, and Tyler was an essential part of our growth strategy there. After he was there 5 years, that's when he went out and started doing some things on his own. He founded Box Out Marketing. You can see on my shirt here, I'm repping Box Out, established in 2014. He started that 7 years ago now, and that's been a great learning for him, but also a great help to thousands of small businesses in the Infusionsoft ecosystem. So Tyler's not only a great business person, not only an amazing strategic marketing mind, but he's just a good human being. Many of you know that Infusionsoft stopped doing their annual user conference. Tyler picked up that baton for a few years, and now Keep is picking that back up. And Tyler's probably going, phew, I don't have to do that anymore.
Exactly.
But he did a great service to the rest of us who who wanted to continue to be involved and connected in that great community. So thank you, Tyler, for keeping that going. All right, well, let's go ahead and jump into this here. Many of you may have responded to our messages about today's session because you experienced some version of this. There's just so much noise going on, so much chaos, so many messages going on out there. It's kind of hard to know where to turn. We all know that we want growth. We want our businesses to do well. We have great aspirations, great visions for our business and what they can do. Yeah, we can go to the next one, Tyler, but we don't really know where to turn. So some of the voices that you hear out there are, you need to get your story or your messaging right. You need to redo your website. You need to use Facebook ads. I'm not going to read all these to you, but the recommendations or the calls for your attention are far and wide. There's many of them. I'd be curious to know if you guys would add anything to this list. So if you just pull up the chat and just fill in the blank, you need to, or you need this, or you need that. What other things are you hearing out there as messages for you as somebody who's trying to figure out how to grow their business?
And Brett, maybe let's add to that. Why are you here? Obviously, you're taking an hour out of your busy schedule.
Right, we're adding to the noise a little bit.
Right. I'm assuming you've experienced some of this noise. You're hoping we can help you cut through it. And that's why you're here. But is there something specific that you've experienced, maybe following along, some of this noise lines that you tried something or heard something or done something, it's failed, you've struggled, what is it's going on in your business that's saying, yeah, I really should, hop on this roundtable discussion and see what Brett and Tyler have to say?
So we've got a couple people jumping in here. Thank you, Amy and Scott. Build your leaders, net new customers. Those are great.
Yeah. So one of the things we'll see, one of the things Brett's going to share in a moment is that each of you are going to have different challenges based on where you're at in your business growth, right? So Amy's talking about building leaders. That's a challenge for her. She's at a particular phase of her business where Scott maybe is in a different place as he's about needs new customers. That's really his focus and his challenge right now. Krista's talking about being out there, and doing a challenge. Debbie, funnels, offers, learn this or that. It's never ending. Yeah, there's just so much stuff out there. And, why do we let that stuff pull our attention all over the place? Well, that's kind of human nature. But Curtis talking about creating brand awareness. That's a challenge in particular phases of business and not necessarily in others. So yeah, this is great. Keep sharing, you guys. This will help us, focus our discussion here.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to the next slide. So that's the context. We have all this noise. We have all these recommendations, all these calls out there to action. What do we do is the big question. Well, you guys aren't going to like this answer, but it's still the right answer. If we go to the next slide, how do you cut through all the noise and figure out what to do? Well, the answer really is it depends. And I know I hated that answer from my professors in college, right? It was like they pose some mind-blowing question and you come up with the answer, but they're like, no, it depends. It depends on all these other factors. Well, today's conversation is a huge it depends conversation, but it's actually the reason that you should have some hope, because we're going to help you figure out how to make that decision about where you should place your time and energy, because it does depend. You're all here coming from different places from a stages standpoint, and that terminology, that stages terminology, will be relevant here in a minute. But you got to figure out where you are in the business growth journey, and there will be stage specific things that you need to do. So I don't know about you, Tyler, but I'm excited to jump into that part of the conversation. And but what do you have anything to add before we start going there?
No, just a couple of good comments here. Diane says, always feeling behind, have visions, but slow getting there. Yeah, I mean, that is just the story of small business, right? Always feeling behind. You got a vision of where you want to go. We're going to talk a lot about vision here in a minute. But it just feels like it takes forever to get there. Clay, CEO at Infusionsoft, has often told the story about how he would always go home and tell his wife, like, things are getting better, things are getting better, things are getting better. And she'd be like, well, it's not getting better for me. And I feel like I've had a very similar conversation with my wife. All the time I was at Infusionsoft, when I joined, the goal was to take the company public. And it was a 2 to 3 year goal. Right. And so, I started in 2007 and 2010-ish, my wife's going like, okay, well, what's going on? What's the plan? I'm like, oh, it's going great. 2 to 3 years out, 2 to 3 years later. So how's it going? What's the plan? Yeah. No, it's on track. 2 to 3 years out. And it's like always 2 to 3 years out and never getting closer. In the grand scheme of things, of course, Infusionsoft, now Keep, has made a lot of progress, towards that. But yeah, I get that, Diane. I understand that feeling. I think all of us do. Seth says they're folks selling you on stuff that works that doesn't.
Yeah, I was going to call that out. And sometimes, I like doing positive from people. I don't believe there's a lot of people out there trying to sell you stuff that they don't think works. But sometimes they're selling you things that are small business solutions, but they're not specific enough to the stage that you're in. They're not specific enough to the struggles and challenges you purchasing. And so they're small business solutions on the whole without understanding the nuances at each stage that we'll talk about later. Why don't you talk about I saw you flash that next slide, the house analogy and
yeah, we'll jump into that to kind of just spin off what you were saying there. A lot of what people offer is very tactical and disregards the strategy. And so that's one of the things we're going to hit on heavy today is, getting clear on your strategy so that then you can employ the right tactics and you can ignore all of the noise out there that's trying to draw your attention away with tactics that won't work. So one way to start thinking about this is to imagine your dream home. So if you just sat back and thought about it for a minute, I'm fairly confident that you could get a pretty clear vision. So Diane brought the word vision into the conversation. We're gonna focus on that for a minute. Pretty sure you could get a pretty clear vision on what your dream home would look like, right? You might be able to envision the entryway. You might be able to envision the family room, the eating spaces, flows out to the backyard, and there's this beautiful pool and a sprawling yard, and whatever floats your boat, you could get a pretty clear idea of that. And if I let you think, quietly without me talking for about an hour, you can start to get into the real details, right? I mean, you can start getting into paint colors and trims and furniture and accessories and all kinds of stuff. And you could get into the very details to the point where you could like literally just walk through this house, mentally. You can mentally walk through the house and see all the detail and know exactly what's going on. And that would be your vision for the dream home, right? But here's the problem. Most of us, if we have that idea or that vision in our head of what our dream home looks like, we are not likely, now some people might, but we're not likely to just rush out to the hardware store, buy a hammer and a saw and some nails and get some wood and start throwing that thing together, right? That would not be our next step. Because we know that if we did that, we'd probably end up with something that looks a little bit more like this versus our dream home, right? And that might be if you actually, have some woodworking skills. If you don't, it might look even worse than that. But that's the result of going from vision to tactics, right? Going vision straight to tools and tactics is you end up with something cobbled together that doesn't actually align with what your original vision is. And the missing piece there is, you've got your vision. Instead of going directly to the tools and the tactics, what we're missing there is a blueprint, right? And that's what we will call, for the sake of our conversation today, the strategy piece. See, we do this all day long in business. We have a vision of where we want to go. You probably have a pretty clear vision of how you want to serve your customers, the difference you want to make in their lives. You probably have a pretty clear vision for what you want the business to do for you personally. What kind of freedom it creates for you, financial freedom, time freedom, freedom to do things the way you want, all that kind of stuff. Those are the things that are probably pretty clear on your mind. The end state is pretty clear in your mind, right? But we tend to get spun out of control when we go and buy tools and try and do stuff. and in the meantime, we skip the blueprinting stage. We skip the stage where we really plan it out and we have a framework to follow, and we execute on that plan. And so that's the problem. That is the core problem, the way I see it, with the way most small businesses grow, is they rush to tactics, skip strategy, and therefore you end up with that cobbled together shack instead of the dream home. So, Brett, I'll turn it over to you for this part of the discussion here. I think that's what we had talked about.
Yeah, and I was just thinking as you were talking about that, Tyler, that's the one thing that, I mean, it's not the only thing Tyler and I have in common, but Tyler helps people get their marketing act together, right? Sales and marketing help. That's what he does. I help companies with their business building. Two different types of things. We serve a similar audience, but the common ground is this idea that Tyler just shared, where and sometimes we don't even have a clear picture of the vision, but let's just assume we all have a clear picture of where we want to go. And then we start jumping to the tools and tactics, like he said, because that's the noise being put in front of us. Like that's all the stuff hitting us in our inboxes, through podcasts, through social media. It's tactics and tools, or tools and tactics, and we don't get clear first. And so you need to be a leader in this regard. Number one responsibility of every great leader, as Jim Collins says it, is to set the vision, or to get clear first. That vision piece is really important. But then before we go to tools and tactics, we need a strategy. We need that blueprint that Tyler talked about. So whether we're talking about marketing and sales, which is Tyler's expertise, or we're talking about business building, which is the working on the business instead of in the business. It's it's literally the business building activities of people, processes, systems to scale your business. Whether we're talking about marketing, sales, or building businesses, it's got to be, there has to be a clear strategy first. You have to have clarity, and then you can align resources appropriately. Then we can bring the right tools to bear. Then we can bring the right resources, the right tactics. That's how you get growth. So that's what we want to talk to you about today. It's going to be a little split flavored like this, because the problem is similar in the people that Tyler helped, the people that I helped. The problem is similar, and the answer, the solution is similar, but it is dependent on what stage you're in. We'll get to that here in a little bit. But anything else you want to add to that, Tyler, before we move on?
I think the other key piece is you can't really get to growth without both of these things, and that's why we're having this discussion together. You can say, hey, the marketing and the sales is kind of the engine of the whole thing, but if you stick a Ferrari engine in a Pinto, that car is probably going to spin out of control and end in crash landing. And so the business building that Brett's talking about, culture and planning systems and meeting rhythms and all the stuff that he does, that stuff is super important to manage the growth, right? If you don't have management of that growth and you don't have that stuff in place, then it's just not going to work. So this is why we're excited to have this conversation together today and bring these two things together and help you. Our goal is to help you become the leaders you need to be in driving the vision and the strategy so that you can achieve the growth that you want to achieve.
Well said. Yeah. Okay. Let's go to the next. So this is a place where we hope we'll have. We've already had great engagement. Thank you for your comments in the chat. We invite you to pull that up if you haven't been engaging, because we're going to be this is a place of good roundtable discussion. While we don't have all your lines unmuted, we love the comments and the questions coming in. So thank you, Debbie. By the way, we love knowing that we're giving at least one person exactly what they need today. So this is the stages of small business growth. All right. And we kind of alluded to this previously, but a lot of solution providers, a lot of service providers out there aimed at helping small businesses sort of have the one size fits all, I serve all small businesses. And while it may be true that they can serve a variety of small businesses, whether or not the business they're trying to serve has the specific need that they're selling right now is unknown. They don't really have this backdrop. So this was created by our joint friend Clayton Mask, somebody that we both worked for and with for many years. Clayton had studied the U.S. Census Bureau data from 2010, so it wasn't the most recent one from 2020, but still fairly recent. The most recent one until we get the results from last year's census. And in addition to studying that, at Infusionsoft, we had served tens of thousands of small businesses. So we had a pretty good handle on this picture. But what he saw by breaking down the data is that there are unique stages. So it's not just all small businesses lumped into one bucket. It's that there are unique stages of growth. And if you don't understand the key hurdle or the biggest hurdle at each stage, you might be focusing on solutions or trying solutions that are really aimed at helping you at a different stage. So let's just jump into this, Tyler. We're probably not talking to a bunch of solopreneurs out there. If you are a solopreneur, could you at least just give us an indication? We don't want to talk over you entirely, but if you look at the solopreneur stage there, stage one, it's split into two parts, the side job versus the self-employed. All right, Debbie, we see you. We acknowledge you. We love it. Okay, Dean also, Carmen, solopreneurs. Okay, so you could be in the side job spot or you could be in the completely self-employed spot. Either way, you're by yourself. And the first thing you got to do is figure out, of all the things competing for my time and attention, which ones do I focus on the most, right? That's in the purely side job space. And then we move over to self-employed, where you quit the day job and you say, I'm in this, all in on this. And really the biggest job for you there is to get some leads, not in a systematic way like you would do using Tyler's help in stage 3. We'll talk about that later, but just in a sort of hand-to-hand combat sort of way. Like, let me go find some business. I got to go find some leads to keep the pay coming in. So we have a fair number of folks here on the call who know what it's like to be in that stage. Tyler, what do you remember about this stage yourself?
Yeah, it's a fun and exhilarating stage, for one, because you're when you leave your corporate job or you go out on your own, it's creation time, right? You're creating something new. You're creating, oftentimes we call our business our baby, right? You're creating your baby, and it's fun, but it can be, it is very lonely, and it can be tough breaking out of that stage one, right? Making your first hire, like, that can be scary, right? When you're stretching beyond maybe the financial means of the company just a little bit to get, you need some help, but you can't always afford it. And so that first leap of faith to start to build a little bit of a team can be tough and be a bit of a stretch. We've got some interesting comments and questions here regarding, how do you adjust this now based on a lot of virtual teams? Also, I know of some people here that are saying, I'm a solopreneur, but they're actually probably more in like stage 3. And so realize that these are not set in stone, and that the employees and the sales, or the employees and the revenue, are two of the factors that play into this, right? So, one of the people I know here is a solopreneur, but is like I said, probably stage 3 revenue wise, maybe even more. And so definitely, the challenges change even when you have less people. That's more of an influencer type of business typically that can do that. And we'll talk about different business models here in a minute. But yeah, some businesses don't require a lot of staff and they can grow pretty well. So we'll help you kind of determine, where you are in these stages and what to do about it as well, which is most important. But just realize that just because you're a solopreneur doesn't mean that your biggest hurdle is always leads. You might be a solopreneur with revenue in the stage 3 area, and your biggest hurdles are a little bit different.
Yeah, great comment. And let me give a little more context to this diagram. I kind of got ahead of myself and jumped into stage 1. There's a really interesting pattern on the 1s and 3s of revenue. If you look at that second row on the chart that says sales, there's this pattern on the 1s and 3s of revenue. When you understand a little bit better, it just kind of makes common sense. But before knowing about this pattern, it's invisible to most of us. So the pattern is on the 1s and 3s is where the stage changes are. And the intuitive piece, once I say it, it'll feel intuitive, is that roughly every time you triple in size, that machine that you built, that business that you have at that point, is no longer sufficient to take you any further to get to the next stage. You actually need to shift gears to be able to do the next leg of the journey. So that whether you look at the employee line, number of employees, number of sales, all of that is just to give you some general guidelines about where these stages are. But most of us will see that revenue line and kind of recognize there's a thing there on the 1s and 3s. If you've been past stage 2, past stage 3, you can think back to that 1 to 300,000 range, 300,000 to $1 million, and at each stage you're having to up level in some way, whether that's upgrading in your the people that you bring to the table, maybe in your processes, the systems you use. There's some level of upgrading to enable that next tripling of your business. And that pattern actually continues beyond the 10 million that we have depicted here. We watched it as we grew from 10 million to 30 million, and then from 30 million to 100 million, right? Each time we were tripling in size, we had built the thing that allowed us to get to the place we were. And that thing was now incapable. It was insufficient to get us where we wanted to go next. And the interesting thing about this that we're going to spend a little more time on together is the hurdle piece. And I love that Tyler pointed out that there are different types of businesses. Some business models allow you to get a little more leverage out of the team, right? So maybe there's only 1 or 2 of you, but you've pushed it up to $1 million in revenue. Well, that's more of an influencer-based model or an information-based online product. But on the whole, these patterns are very persistent in businesses across almost any industry. We've seen it over and over again. So why don't we talk about the shifting gears that happens from stage 2 to stage 3, and then from 3 to 4. So in stage 2, some of you said, hey, we're in the 1 to 2 range. You really got to figure out how to sell stuff, right? Like most of us started out with a product or a service that we're good at, or we knew something about, or we were passionate about. And then we had to figure out how to put that in front of people and get them to say yes to an offer. That's really the first leg of the journey. And it's a lot of hand-to-hand combat often, where we're just trying to figure that out. When you
Brett,
grow that, yeah, go ahead, Tyler.
Real quick. I think one thing that's interesting here is that it doesn't matter what you're selling to, because human nature is when we hear presentations like this, we tend to, we may not even do it purposely, but we tend to think up reasons why it doesn't apply to us. And so there might be someone on this discussion today that does e-commerce, and they're like, well, that's different for me. My business is different, is what we always say, and it's just not the case. So whether you're in stage 2 and you need to figure out how to sell, face to face or through appointments or through Zoom, or you got to figure out your e-commerce engine. It doesn't matter. You've got to figure that out and get it rocking, because if you want to get to stage 3, where you're going to pour gas into that engine, you're going to go spend money on marketing and advertising and that kind of thing, then if your sales machine isn't working, then stage 3 is never going to become achievable, because you can't just keep you'll waste money, right? You'll just keep pouring money into that thing and it'll leak out the bottom. And so I think it's just important to recognize that it doesn't matter what kind of business you have, most likely these hurdles apply.
Yeah, great comments. And everybody on the call can tell that you have great domain expertise in this. You've seen a lot, Tyler, because the way you fluidly describe the different types of businesses and the similar challenges they have, it's spot on. So I'm glad we have Mr. Sales and Marketing with us, because that's not me. My expertise is more in the company building side of things. But I see some of the comments, and I'm nodding my head up and down. Re-engineering or recreating the business as you go. That's kind of what it feels like. Somebody else said, I think, Alana said, it's sometimes a challenge to build the plane while flying it. And that's the dynamic we get into, where we're hustling in the day-to-day operational side, the sales, the marketing, the fulfillment. And then we're trying to burn some midnight oil sometimes to get the business building done at the same time. So we're trying to build the plane and fly it. And so I totally acknowledge that comment. That feeling is very common amongst business owners. And a lot of business owners that we work with, Tyler and I both, they don't know how to say yes to the right things, right? And say no to all the other tactics and tools that we were talking about earlier. And so they never make enough progress on the plane building part, and they're just flying what they have. And so they get stuck in that mode of flying what they have, and they don't improve the overall thing. And so then they can't grow. Anything you want to add to that, Tyler? Before, we don't need to spend much more time on this stages thing, but do you want to talk?
Yeah, let's talk through though a little bit. Like you said, the transitions between 2 and 3, and from 3 to 4. I'll just say that for me, we don't need to go into the whole history right now, but if we ever meet each other at an event or something, ask me and I'll tell you the story. But I grew Box out and then basically burnt it to the ground because I didn't solve the stage 2 problem. Revenue wise, we grew way beyond stage 2. We were well into stage 3 that first time around. This was 2015 ish. We crushed it on the revenue, and because of good marketing and sales at events. But I didn't have anyone selling like consistently, and so the business fell apart as we were all focused on fulfillment and no one was selling, and we had lots of expenses and no revenue. And so I think one of the first things you need to do as you move from stage 1 to 2 is, I always call it, break yourself in half. You as the business owner, you got to figure out, I'm really good at sales or I'm really good at fulfillment. Which one is your strength? Whichever one is not your strength, hire someone and get them to do that. Right. So for me, it was eventually I realized, okay, I need to hire someone to do sales. If I have someone doing sales constantly, and it's not me, then it's great. I can focus on the marketing and the service. And that's the way we were able to go from, stage 2 to stage 4 in like 6 months, because I finally realized, that was my problem. Like, I didn't have sales really dialed in. Like I said, once sales is dialed in, you can start to transition to steady operation to stage 3, because now you can really focus on the marketing funnel process, if you want to call it that. But really, now you're dialing in. All right, how much can I spend per click, per ad, per lead, per customer? You start getting into the metrics of the business, at least the marketing and sales side, in a serious way, because to get out of 3 into 4. I've got to have that dialed in. I need to know that I can spend $1 and make 2, right? I need to know I can invest in this business and it will grow. And that's a combination of marketing functionality and expertise, leading into the sales, and then leading into the service part or the fulfillment part of your business that ensures that you're not, processing a bazillion refunds and everything. So, that's your next focus there. And then again, to grow to that next level, your focus shifts a little bit. And it doesn't mean that you don't have challenges in leads and sales and marketing and service along the way as you keep growing. You'll still have challenges with those, and you have to up your game in each of those along the way. But your focus now shifts in stage 4 to the people and the systems. And this is really, Brett's expertise here is, building the teams and creating the systems and the processes and the structure for that team to grow. McDonald's is always the classic example, that they've got systems in place to where they can hire teenagers off the street, plug them in, and somehow, food and decent service comes out the other end. Now, notice I didn't say good food, but but arguably profitable food, right? So, from a business perspective, that's really all that matters. Somehow they keep that engine going, but that's because they have just nailed those systems, right? So, I just think it's interesting how all of this connects, and the more clear you can get on where you actually are and what your next stage is, the more it will help you focus on doing the right things instead of just listening to all that noise and getting spun up from, all the stuff that's drawing at your attention.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, Tyler, because I would love to spend time helping every single business owner on this call, right? I just love doing that. But if they need to figure out their sales motion, right, they need to figure out how to sell consistently, then it's probably not the best investment to spend time with me on company building stuff, right? Or if they haven't figured out how to do the consistent marketing, the consistent lead generation, nurturing conversion, and consistent fulfillment, they don't have that steady operation going yet in stage 3, they would be a little premature in building the part of the plane that I can help with, right? And you should all be seriously thinking about, how do I talk with Tyler as soon as this thing is over, because he knows exactly what that steady operation looks like. He excels at that. And by the way, some of the businesses that get to 7 figures and beyond, they still choose Tyler's help and his team's help because they're just really good at what they do. And so if you don't want to bring that expertise in-house as you grow, then you still have a valuable, outsourced service partner in Box Out Marketing to do that marketing and service fulfillment stuff. But
like I said, Brett, like I said, the previous hurdles don't go away just because you move to the next stage, right? So,
yeah.
Like you said, although marketing and service and whatnot is a key focus in stage 3, as you move to stage 4, it's not like all of a sudden, your marketing and sales challenges just went away and it's, easy going from here on out. And that's why a lot of people still continue to use, Box Out or other services as they grow, because you have to keep conquering those challenges. I want to call out Diane's comment though, because this is a really, really important aspect of business growth. She says it's also a bit hard having someone representing your business /baby too. And I think what she's referring to is hiring someone to come in and do sales or even marketing. But you now have another person who's kind of the face of the business, talking to the customers, convincing them and trying to sell them and all that kind of stuff. And it's different than you, and they might do it differently than you, and they might carry themselves differently than you, and they might not understand the industry as well as you do. There's a whole lot of reasons you might be hesitant to do that. We're talking a lot about Clayton Mask here, but I'm going to bring him up again. CEO of Keep, Clayton, has often said that being a CEO is an exercise in relinquishing control. And I will push you, Diane, and everyone else on the call to, and you're right, Seth, it's all about ego, right? It's all about ego. I can do it best. I need to be the one to do it, etc. Right? So I'm going to push you to let go of that a bit, right? You've got to let go of that. You've also got to get clear though on some of the stuff that Brett teaches and that the elite entrepreneur team helps you with, which is getting really clear on your culture, your core values, what you're all about as a company, your purpose. Because when you go to hire that person that's going to represent your company, you need to make sure that they represent the company well. And the way you do that is by making sure they align with your core values and they align with your purpose. And if they do, then you're going to have a real good chance of that being successful. But you have to be willing to let that go. If you don't, you'll never get past the stage that you're at. And that's not just with sales. It's not just with marketing, but it's everything going forward. And like I said in the beginning, when you go from stage 1 to stage 2, you have to break yourself in half. Well, the next stage, you got to break yourself again. Then you got to break yourself again. And every stage, you're breaking off a piece of yourself and you're delegating it to someone else. And you're always going to feel that hesitancy a bit, right? But the more you do it and the better you get at it, the more you're going to be able to grow. You have to be able to let go of that stuff.
We had a lot of great comments coming in as you were talking, Tyler, and it's fun to partner with somebody who's a genius in sales and marketing, but can speak to the space that I work in so well. So you're awesome at that, Tyler. But that relinquishing control comment triggered lots of people here. Relinquishing control is my biggest weakness, is what Lisa said. Culture Eat Strategy for Breakfast from Seth. I love the one that Seth also said, if you sacrifice culture early, you will slide backwards, fixing it later. Like Absolutely. you can do some short-term things, right? You can invest in short-term wins and hurt yourself in the long term, and you will experience sliding back, or at least a significant plateau or pit that you got to sort of wade through. It sounds like Seth might have some personal experience with that. All right, very good. So in order to go any further than that 7-figure mark, that magic $1 million mark, then there are a lot of investments you have to make if you want to keep going. Doesn't mean sales and marketing and service fall off the planet. They don't. They're super important still, but the key success factors to continuing your growth boils down to the things that Tyler was just talking about. Let's go ahead and move on, Tyler.
Great.
So we put a little summary slide here on takeaways from that visual. You could see on the left, if you're less than $1 million in sales, these are some of the keys or descriptors of things that you have to be good at to get to $1 million plus. In order to keep growing, you've got to be able to do these other things. So you're making a transition. We talked about the idea of shifting gears, and I love that the box out slide template has gears on it, but you're shifting gears from competent operator, right? Somebody who's exceptional at running their business, to somebody who's really capable and confident in building the business further. So that's the transition. That's the shift we're making at that $1 million. Before that, it's all about improving your operating ability. After that, you got to stay good. You got to stay sharp on operations, but you've got to be a business builder as well.
Yeah, Seth called it technician to operator. Absolutely.
All right. So Tyler, why don't you take this next little bit?
Yeah, let's move on. We'll start to pick up the pace here a little bit. So we talked earlier about your vision, right? It all starts with your vision. You have to be really clear on where you're going. And I'm going to talk a little bit more focused on the marketing and sales aspect of the business right now. And then Brett's going to talk about the vision for the business and building the actual business, the company, and the structure and the systems for that. But let's just think about your marketing and sales vision. What you need to do next, like I said, instead of just jumping straight to tools and tactics, is you need to define your strategy or have a blueprint in place to follow. If you don't follow a blueprint, you're going to create a mess. After you get clear on the blueprint, then of course, now we go and we look at tools. If you buy tools without understanding your blueprint, chances are you're going to buy the wrong tools, right? So, imagine building a house. You might get clear on your vision. If you don't have a strategy, you might go and buy a jackhammer. It might be the best jackhammer in the world. You might even hire the best jackhammerist. I don't know what you call those people, but you might hire the best person.
I was one, yeah, laborer.
A laborer. There you go. So you might hire the best laborer in the world that knows how to use a jackhammer really well, and you're going to end up with a hole in the ground, not a house, because you bought the wrong tool. But we do that all the time in sales and marketing. You buy the wrong funnel tool, the wrong, landing page tool or whatever, or maybe it's not even wrong. You just don't know how to use it, right? You don't know how to use the tool. You get it, you get Infusionsoft, you get Keep, and it's overwhelming. There's a lot it can do. And that tool goes to waste because the strategy wasn't in place first. Once you have the tools aligned with the strategy, then we can get into the actual process of building the stuff, whether you're building the house or you're building campaigns, you're building processes. Now that all makes sense, right? And then once you build and launch stuff, now we go into a phase of evaluating and optimizing. Now we're looking back on what we did. We're looking at the results and we're making adjustments. What we need to do though next is we need to look back at our vision, and we've got to make sure we're aligned with our vision. Our vision may have expanded. Maybe it shifted. Maybe the market changed, right? Maybe some things happened there that we have to adjust. And so now we need to reevaluate our strategy, right? And then we reevaluate our tools and we build some more stuff and evaluate and optimize, and you go round and around and around. I couldn't figure out how to make curved arrows. So this should be the circle. It looks a little bit more like a square, but you get into this cycle where you're evaluating everything against the vision and adjusting the strategy and then employing the tools and building the stuff and going round and around and around. It's a never ending process. If you think you're going to go, sign up for Keep and launch your life cycle campaigns and then set it and forget it, well, you are sorely mistaken. It's not going to work that way. It might get you to a certain point, but it's going to stall. You have to commit to this process and this cycle. And it all begins with the vision and then follows with the strategy. And these are things that we can help you with at Box Out with your sales and marketing. It's getting a clear blueprint in place. Sometimes we call that a map, right? Get that in place. And then we can help you with the tools, whether it's training you on the tools or helping you understanding what's possible. We can help you build it through what we call the factory, which is our service that helps you build all the technical stuff. And then around and around you go. But if you try and short circuit any part of this cycle, you will create disaster for yourself. So let's just talk real quick. I mentioned this earlier, but we tend to bucket everybody in 4 different types of businesses. Debbie mentioned it earlier that she had even just last week said that their business was unique. We all tend to do that. We all tend to think that our problems are unique. They're not. You likely fall into one of these 4 groups. You're a local service business. That could be professional services or household services. You're an online service business. Could be a software as a service or an agency or something like that. E-commerce or influencer, speaker, author, coach. Okay. In each of these business models, we call them, there's a blueprint. There's a basic place to start, right? We call this best practices or proven strategies, right? If you go off and try and do your own thing, or you listen to the guy, on the webinar or the video ad or whatever, who's selling you the one funnel that will solve all your problems, chances are it doesn't align super well with your business model. And therefore, it's going to cause some problems. It's going to cost you money and waste your time and not necessarily convert. But if you start with the best practices or the blueprint or the proven strategies for your business model, you've got a much better chance of making it succeed. And you can look at each of these and off the top of your head, recognize some of the differences. Yes, your business is different because your local service business is different than your e-commerce business, right? For sure. But all local service businesses, for the most part, will sell through some type of appointment, right? So our lead capture to appointment process is going to be very similar. And then we get people onto retainers or contracts or whatever, right? E-commerce is going to sell through online ad to an opt-in to a tripwire to an upsell, et cetera, right? So the models are set and there are things you should follow. The blueprints are there. And that's where we want to help you get started with a clear blueprint for your business model. And then you can dial that in for your particular business. So again, just to review, you want to make sure your vision and your strategy are clear before you go and employ tools or start building stuff. Okay. All right, Brett, I'll turn it over to you for the business building portion of this.
Yeah, so this will be eerily familiar to everyone here as we build this out. But most companies don't have a clear picture, a clear vision for their business. Most business owners don't have that clear vision. They have clear wants. Tyler talked about freedoms that we all want, right? We want freedom, we want money freedom, time freedom. We don't want the headaches of trying to lead a growing team of people. Like there's a lot of freedoms that we long for, but we haven't done the work of getting clear on our vision for the business as a whole. And to me, that's about purpose, values, mission. There are these core things that make up clarity for everyone associated with your business that then allows us to get clear on the strategy. So that's the next stage. This is very similar to it's the same model basically as what Tyler went through for the sales and marketing work in your business. And you have to lead the sales and marketing work, that cycle that he went through. There's a similar cycle for building your business. And once you have a clear vision, now we can make strategic choices about where to spend or where to allocate precious resources, whether that's time or money or how the team structure builds out, where you spend your attention as a leadership team. All of that should be more clear once the strategy or the blueprint for your business is in place. Then we'll go to team. Okay, different than tools. When we're doing marketing work, We're talking about tools. When we're doing business building work, we're talking about team that's in line with the strategy that you created for your business. After team, an important thing to do is to be clear on a meeting rhythm. One of the most difficult things, and I know it's getting a little later in our call now, but one of the most difficult things for any business owner is to help a growing group of people, even if they're A players, to help a growing group of people take targeted, coordinated action towards a shared objective. That's magic when you get it right. But most of us are just sort of setting everybody loose. Go, you're a great person. I hired you. Now go. Instead of having a meeting rhythm that enables targeted, coordinated action. So we're bringing the right people to bear against the strategy, and then we're using a meeting rhythm to coordinate them to pull together. And then more specifically, yeah, go ahead, Tyler.
Brett, I was just going to say, I've been so shocked at how many people I've interviewed and hired into our company that have said that in previous companies, they had no, meeting rhythm, strategic planning process, whatever. Matt, who was our COO a year or so ago, he came into this going, oh my gosh, I was in a really big business before that didn't have any of this stuff in place. I taught him everything that I've learned from Elite about strategic planning and our meeting rhythm and all that kind of stuff. He ended up then taking that. He got a job as the COO of another really big company, a great opportunity for him. But he got that job because of this stuff, because he learned and understood how to manage the operations of the business in a powerful way that propels growth. And it's just been interesting to me to learn how many people aren't doing this stuff.
Well, and none of the business owners on this call are looking for their next gig. At least I hope you're not, because we want to help you be successful with the one that you have. But the principle there that leadership is often lacking in businesses. And I hate to hold up the mirror to you. I'll hold it up to me. But this is a mirror moment. If we don't know how to do this business building work, we put people in the game. They say, put me in, coach, and we hire them and we throw them in the game without any sort of understanding of how the game works, how the score is kept, how we work together. And it's our job to provide that clarity and then turn them loose and then let their talent shine. And when that happens, watch out, right? We get game-winning results repeatedly. So let's move from meeting rhythm to planning. I'm calling this out specifically because it's not just the meeting rhythm is both the short-term and the long-term side of your business, right? Earlier, I think it was Debbie who talked about flying the plane while building it. That's the two halves of our business. And we have to know how to fly it and build it at the same time. We got to fly today's and build tomorrow's at the same time. And the meeting rhythm enables enough attention on both. Without the meeting rhythm, we all go to flying today's engine. We just default there. With the meeting rhythm, we keep adequate attention on both. And the planning, I'm talking about quarterly planning now, is very specific to the longer term progress of your business, the future enabling work. And that's where we're going to check back in with vision. So Tyler, that little arrow is going to come back up, right? Yep. So in the planning process, we're going to check back in with vision. And frankly, we're going to look back at the blueprint as well and make sure that we're still mapping. And then that cycle is just going to repeat. So whether we're talking about sales and marketing leadership to grow your company, or we're talking about business building leadership to grow your company, there's a very similar process that Tyler and I got excited about when we were comparing notes for how do we do this more intentionally so we're not just throwing tools or team at the situation. Go ahead, Tyler.
Yeah, absolutely. So just back to our earlier slide, that it all starts with you as the leader, that you need to grow into the leader that your company needs you to be so that you can lead that marketing and sales cycle and you can lead the business building cycle. Without you as the leader and without those cycles being followed appropriately, growth won't come. But with those three things in place, the growth does come. and it's exciting and it's fun. And it's not as chaotic and confusing and as overwhelming as it was without those things. So our hope today is that you start to see some of the frameworks that we've shared with you, the stages of small business growth, this cycle for marketing and sales growth, the cycle for business building growth, these processes and steps to follow as something that you can start to employ in your business to get where you want to go. Again, when you're clear on those things, now you can cut through the noise, because all the different things that call at your attention that are saying, hey, I've got the best things since sliced bread. You can look at it quickly and evaluate it against where you are in the stages, against your business model, against that marketing and sales cycle, against the business building cycle, and go, oh, hey, that's actually something that's really interesting to us. Or no, that doesn't apply right now. I'm just going to put that on the shelf. Maybe I'll address it another time, but it doesn't apply. And so therefore, I can just ignore all the noise out there and move forward with confidence in the way that I need to grow my business. Brett, any further comments on that?
No, if you just pull up the next thing, I'd like to make my comments about that with this as the backdrop. So you guys are in positions all the time where you have to decide what do you do, right? What do I do? And this may feel a little overly simplified, but less than $1 million in sales over on the left versus more than $1 million in sales, we put some of the pain points that might be familiar to you depending on the stage that you're at right now. And if you need some help with business building, I would encourage you to ignore me altogether if you're not at $1 million or fast approaching it, right? Because really the key success factors for you going through stage 2 or stage 3 is the kind of help that Tyler is exceptional at. And so if you are above 7 figures, you're not going to find a better place on the planet to get some help around business building. We do the 1 to 10 million journey really, really well. And I invite you to schedule a consult with me, and we'll just see if there's anything going on in your business that is familiar to me. By the way, I think I know everything that you're dealing with, regardless of the business that you're in. The struggles are very, very similar in that stage. So I know we're wrapping up on time here, Tyler. So I want to give you enough time to speak to what you have available to folks that could be of use to them.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Brett. So I've put a link in the chat for the factory. And Tammy just posted a comment. So thank you, Tammy. But the factory is what we've created at Box Out as a very efficient way of getting all the technical implementation done. So again, once you're clear on your strategy or your blueprint and you have the tools in place, then we can help you do all the implementation, whether it's building campaigns, building landing pages, membership site work, all that kind of stuff, all the technical stuff that's required to bring your sales and marketing to life and really your business automation to life. That's what we focus on, and it's called the Factory. It's a request-based system. So you log into the system, you submit your request for our team to do stuff. They do it, they get it back to you, and then you move on to the next thing. It's flat rate, no contracts required. So the nice thing is, you don't have to go into some big crazy commitment with an agency. We're actually able to offer this service at a much more affordable rate than really anything you've seen out there. It's a great way to get the stuff built. But again, you got to be clear on what you need built. We can help you with that part if you're not clear. We do a blueprinting or a mapping call with you to help you get clear. So there's that link there if you want to click on the factory link in the chat, and there's also a button up above to schedule with Brett. And I'd highly recommend it. The reason we've been able to get to where we are as a company and moving quickly beyond where we are is because of the things that I learned from Clayt at Keep, who was employing all the stuff he was learning from Brett back in the day. And then I've also gone through the elite program myself as a business owner and taken all those things and refined them and employed them in our business. So, there's no way to go where you want to go without the right team and processes in place. And I credit, our wonderful team and the systems that we have in place to, these foundational things that I've learned from Brett and Clay in the Elite program. Definitely couldn't recommend them more highly than that. So anyways, we're happy to stay for a few minutes and open it to questions. If you guys have specific questions about where you're at, where you're trying to go. We purposely didn't get into like, detailed, conversation about our services and whatever. We can talk to you guys about that offline. This isn't intended to be a sales pitch, but we wanted to kind of open your eyes to why things are tough as a small business owner and how they can be better. Some of the things you can do to get some more clarity in your business and turn that business into the freedom machine that you envisioned it to be. So thank you. Thank you guys for joining us, and we'll spend a few minutes and answer questions if you'd like.
Yeah, and Tyler had last chance at the mic there. I appreciated Tammy's comments in the chats about the factory service. She's used it. I've used Boxed Out Marketing as a service provider for our marketing. They're exceptional at what they do. I'm not just saying that because I've known Tyler forever, but he's built a great team and a great service if you need those services, right? And might not be the tool or the tactic that you need right now, but they're exceptional at it when the time is right for you. All right, so how can we help you guys? What questions do you have? Debbie has a question. I don't know that we can give her.
She's probably still typing it.
Yeah.
While we're waiting for her question, though, Tammy made a great comment about the factory. She's a current factory customer. She says, make a request, go to bed, and in a few days, a new campaign is in your toolbox. And that's right. That's basically how it works. You just delegate all that technical work to us, and we take care of it. So.
Great. And that is one of the other things we share. Tammy, we're both fans of Tammy Weiler. Thank you for being here, Tammy. How do you know when to find a strategist? Love that.
Really interesting question. I think I have some follow-up questions there about what that means, a strategist, right? I'm going to argue that you should be the primary strategist as the CEO because no one gets it like you do at a high level. You might need some assistance and some hand-holding and some guiding in your marketing and sales strategy and in how you're going to develop your business building strategy. That's where our services come into play. But I think it's whenever you get stuck, that's where you should look first. What's wrong with my strategy, or how can I refine the strategy to get clear on how I'm going to move forward? And in the early stages, you might be talking to friends who have been where you are and have gone where you need to go, and they can give you a little bit of advice and whatever for free. And as you grow, you can start to invest more and more in those resources. So I'm not sure it's something you have to like save up for and then finally you purchase a strategist. It's like you can get strategic help along the way, but realize that. This is what I always say about marketing in general. In stages 1 through 5, and probably even 6, but probably after 6 into 7, whatever, it changes. But 1 through 5, for sure, you as the CEO need to be the primary owner of marketing and sales results. Okay. And what does that mean? Doesn't mean you have to be the one doing it. You certainly are going to need to end up delegating that kind of stuff. But a lot of people end up getting into the situation where, they're in stage 4 or 5, like, okay, business is making a little bit of money. I'm going to now get this big weight off of my shoulders, this marketing and sales weight, because it is a weight that you carry, right? I want to get this weight off my shoulder. I'm gonna hire, a guru, some ninja or an agency or whatever. I'm just gonna hire, and they're gonna take care of it, right? 99 times out of 100, that fails. If you try and disconnect yourself from the responsibility. So you have to stay close enough to where you own the results, right? You can have other people doing the work, but you've got to be close to the strategy, and you got to be close to the just owning the results, or else it will fall apart. Once you get to the point where you actually have like an executive team and you can have a true leader and owner of like marketing and sales who can drive and own and lead that whole process, then you can start to let go of that weight. And that doesn't happen till like stage 6, 5, or maybe late 5, 6, 7, etc. But if you want to just completely let go of it and delegate it before stage 6, I promise you're going to have a problem. So I wish I could tell you something other than that. It would make our lives a lot easier when we're in stages 3, 4, and 5. But that is just the truth of the matter. I've seen it over and over and over.
So Debbie's been asking about, does Brett or your team help clear the fog? And we're back to that "it depends" question, right? If we knew more about your fog, Debbie, we could answer that more clearly. If it's sales and marketing fog, then that's Tyler. If it's we've got the sales and marketing thing working pretty well, we've grown to 7 figures, and I'm having some fog about how to build this thing from here, then I'd be happy to talk to you.
Yeah, I'm typing a response here, but I'll just respond out loud to Marcy's question about, hey, with the factory, do you have to write your own copy? Yeah, so with the factory, we only do technical implementation. We do have some services we recommend, and depending on what promotion we might be running in the month, sometimes we'll get you a free subscription to Ready to Go Copy, which is kind of a copy template resource, and it's great. And so that's one option. Or we have a few copywriters we've used in the past, because our company was more of a full service agency in the past, and those copywriters that we have worked for us for years, and they're trained and they're really good. They understand the automation game and exactly what's going on with the way we do stuff, and so we can recommend them as well.
Akemba asked you some questions. Did you see that one, Tyler?
Yeah, I'm seeing it here. Does the factory still include a monthly strategy session? Does it now also include working on membership sites? So the factory doesn't include actually any strategy support. It's just technical implementation. But when people sign up for the factory, we often offer a free blueprinting or mapping call. And so that 90-minute call we'll do with you, you don't have to twist our arm too hard to get that call for free. So, because we know that when you're clear on your strategy, you're going to do well in the factory. And so, yeah, we do that in the beginning. Like I said, it's not required that you sign a contract, but we do give you a discount if you commit to 6 months. And if you're committing to 6 months, then we will, every time you renew that subscription, we can also offer you that strategy call. Now, we also have our twice weekly open office and factory support calls, where you can get on those calls. They're group calls, but you can get on those calls and get some strategic help and advice as well. And we're in the process right now of devising some new ways to provide some strategic help for our customers. And that's going to be in the form of some other types of group calls, but maybe more focused, like hot seat focus, or focus each week on a different area of strategy, things like that. So we're working on that. But just to be clear, the factory itself doesn't include strategic support or one-on-one strategic help, except for that free mapping call that we might do in the beginning. Debbie says, we're just over 1 million and I'm totally nervous. Please connect me with Brett. Yes. What I would recommend, Debbie, is just click that button right above the chat, and it says schedule with Brett. Just click that. That'll schedule you right on Brett's calendar, on his personal calendar.
Yeah, so you can take that action, Debbie. I did see that you put your email in the chat earlier, and so I'll reach out, but it is fast to just grab some time on my calendar.
Yeah. Yeah, Brett and his team are a great resources. If you're at that $1 million mark, man, I can't imagine trying to go beyond that without the things that they teach. All right, well, let's give it another minute or two here if there's any other questions. If you're typing a long question, do what Debbie did and just say, hey, I'm typing a question, and then that'll have us pause for a minute. We'll know that questions are coming, and we can wait for you. Otherwise, we'll wrap up here in just a minute and let you guys get on with your days.
Fun to see some familiar names in those who came today. Thanks for joining us. It's so much fun. All right. Thank you, Akemba. Thank you, Jamie.
Jamie, how's it going? Didn't realize you were on here. Awesome. I think we're probably good on the questions then, Brett. Let's go ahead and wrap up. Thank you all. It's been great. Hopefully this was valuable. Brett and I, as we were preparing this, we weren't entirely sure, if this was going to be received well, because we're kind of melding these two different concepts, although they are similar in the way that you approach them. But personally, I felt like it flowed well together.
A couple of people are saying, yeah. Okay. Tyler, it was a pleasure to do this with you. You're amazing. You make it flow well. That's part of your genius. So that was fun. Anything I can do to help any of you, please reach out. We gladly put myself in a place to help you however I can.
Awesome. Likewise here. And we'll send out an email with a link to a replay if you guys want to go back and review any of this information, as well as a link to schedule with Brett and to connect with us about the factory if you're interested. So thanks so much. We'll see you guys later.